Thank you all so much. What a pleasure to be here. And it's so interesting. I was thinking, what is Home Depot doing today without you? I mean, has the entire operation come to a standstill? And I said that to people at my table and they went, yes. I can imagine there are a few people tearing their hair out at this moment. So, as you can see, I've interviewed a lot of people, and I think this is probably about my 29th talk here at the Home Depot. So during the time, I get asked a lot of questions. I get asked, who's the best person you've ever interviewed? Is George Clooney really so sexy, right? Who's the worst person you've ever interviewed? And whether I'm in Dallas or Dubai or Durban, the question that I get asked most is, before you stand up in front of a group of people like this, or before you go live on television, do you get nervous? That is the question I get asked. So because I have my own, I think 5 Home Depot aprons, and because I have been here so many times, I'm actually going to share my secret antidote to nerves with you. So how many people in this room have already attended Greater Impact seminars or heard me speak? So ladies, if you can be the first to stand. Don't be nervous, because they know what I'm about to do. Now, I'm just looking around. Okay, these are the people who are going to do what I'm going to do with gusto. Now, the rest of you, please stand. Now, what I do is I normally go to the far end of the CNN newsroom, or in this case today, I'll go to the end of the corridor, and the ladies who have been to Great Impact seminars before can join me, but I take a deep breath in, and I go like this, 1, 2, 3, right? It works wonderfully. Now, the rest of you, I'm going to ask you to do it. Please focus on me. Nobody is looking at you. They're only looking at me, making a complete fool of myself. So take a deep breath in, and 1, 2, 3. Just go for it. And 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. And don't you feel better already? You may be seated. I also say that works when you're having a particularly difficult interaction with the people or person you're supporting, because you know you can't scream at them. You just go to the back. Hello, what can I help you with? And I can assure them that without you, some of them are doing that right now. So I know for those of you who've heard me speak before, you know my story, but in 1997, I left Johannesburg, South Africa. At the time, I was a primetime anchor. I also had the first media and presentation skills school in the country. Nelson Mandela had become president in 1997, so we were no longer the pariahs of the world. He actually became president in 94, so by 97 he'd been president for 3 years. And it was a pretty extraordinary time politically to be living in South Africa. There was one problem though, and that was the crime. So on a very cold Thursday night in 1997, a friend called to say that someone we knew very well had had 5 armed guys burst into his house, torture him with a burning iron. And they said, look, Rob is in critical condition and not expected to live. He didn't. That very same night, my mother called to say a guy we knew very well, he'd been very active in the anti-apartheid movement, had been hijacked and murdered. I looked at my 2 small children. Who here has children? Just curious, okay? Looked at 2 small, tiny, innocent babies. They were 3 and 6 at the time. And I thought, I've got an opportunity to bring them to Atlanta because my husband had me made a job offer here. And we had won our green cards in the lottery. Does anybody here know anybody who's won their green cards in a lottery? You do now. It's a rather extraordinary thing, and I always say to Americans, we don't realize what it is to get into this country and how difficult it is. So that night, I said to my husband, look, you're right. We've got an opportunity, safer place. I'll take you up on it. But by Friday morning, I changed my mind. You know something about the sun coming out, and you think, what am I giving up? But it was too late. He was on his way. So I found myself in 6 weeks living in Atlanta, Georgia, after leaving a primetime anchor position, being a household name, and knowing nobody. Well, I'm so honored and privileged to be standing in front of you. You really are the nuts and bolts of this organization. And just spectacular women, many of you I know. And the reason I am standing in front of you today is because of courage, consistency, and charisma. Now, for me, courage, consistency, and charisma means I help support a family. I work and speak and teach around the country, and in fact, I've just launched a book in South Africa, and I still work at CNN as a producer on the weekends and sometimes host a segment. For you, courage, consistency, and charisma means the ability to skillfully handle your role every single day, to influence and support the people that you support, to manage stressful conflict situations. So I want us to think about each one of you is in this room because you already have courage, consistency, and charisma. You don't get to be in an organization at the level you're at without it. But I love what Emerald says just before he adds flavor to food, and before he says, bam, he says, let's kick it up, huh? We're here to say, are there times that we could be doing it better? Now, I'm a little concerned that there's a table sitting over there that might have difficulty seeing me. I mean, I know you are completely brilliant and can see through a wall, but if you can't see through a wall, feel free to go to some other tables just while I speak and then resume the table for lunch. So I thought long and hard when I spoke to Eileen about being here today, and think about the impact you have every day on the people you support, on the people they support. You really are an extraordinary group of individuals, and the impact you could have on the trajectory of your own career. So we're here to look at that in the time we have together and say, do we leverage it? Are we as impactful as we could be? Or are there times we could take it to a new level? And I wanted to give you something to go away with this afternoon, and it was lighting the fire, F-I-R-E, so that it was very tangible and you could go home this evening and share it with somebody. And the first thing in having courage, consistency, and charisma is actually how you feel about yourself. There is no greater impediment to getting on well with other people than being ill at ease with yourself. Think about it. How are you feeling today? Is it a good day for you? Do you want to scream at someone? Do you need to go in the corner and go, ah, hello, everything's fine? But where you're at, and you know, very early on when I moved to this country, I was very lucky to work for a South African television station, and I was interviewing Anthony Hopkins. And I remember walking and being very nervous and thinking, who am I to interview Anthony Hopkins? Anthony Hopkins is a big star, and I'm just a girl from South Africa. And when the other journalist walked out of the interview with Anthony Hopkins, she said, oh my gosh, Anthony Hopkins is in such a bad mood. His interview was so sheet. And I thought, I can't have a sheet interview. So I did something that I'm going to ask you all to start doing. And that is, I started thinking about things that validate me. And you'll relate, this is a validating moment in my life. I started thinking about Nadia good moments, moments when I did feel good about myself, moments when I felt that I was in my zone. So I'm going to ask you to take a moment to think, what would that be for you? If I said to you, you're about to walk into a very intimidating meeting, or the person you're supporting is in a very difficult mood and not being particularly gracious in that moment, or somebody wants a meeting with them and you've got to say no, think about all those things. How are you feeling about yourself? So I played what I call my positive emotional memory database. Things, meeting Mandela, the Women in Film Awards with Elfrey Woodard, things that when I think about, I go, okay, Nad, even though that red dress doesn't fit me anymore. Zone moments. So by the time I walk into Anthony Hopkins, I'm feeling, you know, that good, confident self, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Good, confident self versus, oh my gosh, she's Anthony Hopkins' self. And I said, Mr. Hopkins, Matthew McConaughey says you are one of the most disciplined actors he's ever met. And he said, yes, we had a great interview. And I remember thinking, feeling good about yourself is the key to having courage, confidence, and charisma. That's the most important thing. By the way, if you wonder what's happening over there, we are FaceTiming with a whole lot of executive assistants around the country. They're being rather loud at the moment, but thank you and welcome. So if you hear that, that's what's happening. So, hi everybody, just say hi. 1, 2, 3. Hi! That's our, thank you for being here. And they're saying hi back. Modern technology. So, what makes you feel good about yourself? Now, conversely, when I interviewed Richard Gere, They took it very seriously, our people. So when I interviewed Richard Gere, I remember going, Richard, I understand you're doing a movie with Julia Roberts. And Richard said to me, who told you that? Has that ever happened to you when someone speaks to you in a tone that is not great? Not that it's ever happened to any of you in this room, right? And I had a moment where I thought, I felt less than. I'm not sure if there's a way we can make our FaceTime people quieter. So should we remind them? FaceTime people, if you could put yourselves on mute, we would be grateful. They're having a conversation. Oh, that's lovely. You know, there's always a first, right? This is my first presentation that I've done for the lovely people via FaceTime. I think that's pretty cool. And I love how hip and up-to-date we all are. So when I interviewed Richard Gere, I remember thinking, I wasn't that zone self, so I almost allowed him to intimidate me. Do you know what I'm saying? And I remember thinking, if I had just been, oh, well, everybody's talking about the movie that you're doing with Julia Roberts. It was Runaway Bride. But I didn't. I let him unnerve me because I wasn't playing my positive emotional memory database. So I want you to think about it. So much of the time you're having to deal with crises and other people's issues and do things, right? What when you are feeling slightly intimidated and you're not feeling the absolute best version of yourself? What is a series of things each one of you in this room can think about that validates you? So really take that away with you today. So often I have people come up to me who've done my classes or seminars and they say to me, that was the most helpful thing. Because if I walk into a difficult meeting or an interaction or even a job interview or someone who's being difficult, I play my positive emotional memory database. So think about how you feel about yourself and do you exude the level of ease and confidence that does you a service. Now the second part of lighting the fire is thinking about what stops us doing this and what stops us having the courage to, let's say, have a difficult conversation. Some of you in this room may have someone that they're working with or you report to, and you'd like to have the conversation with them that says, I understand you're under a lot of pressure, but when you speak to me like that, this is the way it makes me feel. Or my sense of things is you don't fully understand exactly what I do. There must be things and times where you need courage to confront what's going on, right? What stops us doing that? What stops us having the courage, and I'm not saying to be aggressive or to be confrontational. I'm saying the ability to, if someone is upsetting you. Recently I had a situation at CNN on a Sunday where I had an interaction with one of my colleagues, and I said to her, Camille, my sense is you're very frustrated about X. I said to her, I'd be so grateful if you help me understand what you need from me. That's a courageous conversation to have, right? It's so much easier to just not say anything or to get angry. So on the subject of what stops us, can I have 2 volunteers, please? Thank you very much. We have a volunteer. Volunteer, please. Volunteer. We have 2 volunteers. Come and join us on the stage. We actually have 3. How wonderful. Come and join us. 3 volunteers, more than I asked for. Lovely. Won't you introduce yourselves?
My name is Mia Kerr.
Hi, I'm Erica Lee.
Excellent. And our 3rd volunteer is?
Diane Duggan.
Diane Duggan. Okay, now, while you see these 3 beautiful ladies on the stage, can I ask you who is relieved that they're not standing up here? Be very honest. Who isn't standing up here because you feel you've already spoken enough and you already put yourself out there enough? Okay. Who isn't standing up here and you actually wish you were now? Okay, come and join us. Fabulous. And we have Janelle Gibson. Okay, thank you. So I want 5 of us. Excellent. Yay. Okay, so give these ladies a very warm round of applause. And now I am going to ask you all to sit down. Oh, before you sit down, wait, I forgot the most important part. Stay up. Thank you. Thank you so very much. You each get a copy of one of my books and products. Here's Small Changes, Big Impact. If you don't mind passing them down the line while I go and get you one more, because there were more volunteers than I anticipated. Fabulous. You each get a copy. That's Small Changes, Big Impact. That's Brand You and soon to be Own Your Space. We give them a warm round of applause now. And now you may sit down. Thank you. So when I said, can I have 2 volunteers? What went through your mind? Not me. Except for Eileen, who went, okay, I've already been up here. You went, not me. And do you know that that is the exact same feeling that you experience when you go, I really should have this conversation with the people I support, or the individual I support. You know what, I'm not going to because it's too uncomfortable. And you're nodding. Or you think, I really should have this conversation with a coworker. You know what, it's easier to just ignore it. Now, I am not saying be confrontational, but the ability to say to somebody, Deneen, my sense is there's something uncomfortable going on here. I'm not telling you there is something. I'm saying, my sense is that you're not happy with something. Can you help me understand what's going on? Do you see how important that is? And that takes courage. It also takes courage to reach out to people that you may not normally have done. So we say courage is not the absence of fear. It's the taking of action despite the fear. And I'm going to ask you to, for now and forevermore, question that a moment of reaction when I said, can I have 2 volunteers? And you went, a little bit uncomfortable. But you see, that little bit uncomfortable is an emotional reaction. It's not an intellectual reaction. Intellectually, you would go, Nadia Bilchik has been to this company many times. She's a professional woman. What could she possibly ask me to do that's so bad? Don't answer, no. But think about it. Do you see how you let that emotion sabotage you? And ladies and gentlemen, anything in your life right now that you think you should be doing, check in with yourself. What is your brain associating with that, and what is stopping you? Because human beings are motivated by the extension of pleasure and the prevention of pain. So why would you volunteer for yourself for something that you thought was uncomfortable? So I'm asking you to assess that and have courage, because very often what stops us is a kind of fear or a kind of discomfort which really is false events appearing real. The next part of lighting a fire is what stops us in terms of nervousness. How do we overcome anxiety or nervousness? And one of the best ways is develop your positive emotional memory database. And then take a deep breath. Do you know that deep breathing, when people say take a breath, actually neutralizes the adrenaline in the body? Just try it. Take a deep breath. Deep breath. Before you say something, before you react, you know when you get that rude email? Take a deep breath. And then one of the things I suggest is if you're walking into a difficult interaction and you want to come across with confidence, look at the difference between, I think there's a problem here, and I think there's a problem here. So simply put, some humming exercises. I'll quickly do one with the vowel sound A. Hum, just try it. Hum, And I, on my way to a talk, or if I've got to come across with authority and confidence, I go, and by the way, I have a video on YouTube called Combat Nerves with Nadia. I can see you all coming into work tomorrow. And when somebody asks you something difficult, you just smile and go, But really that does help, because we want to come across as confident, authoritative women and gentlemen, and not sounding like we're nervous and high-pitched. And finally, some isometric exercises where you contract your whole body, squeeze, and relax. By the way, this is not to be done usually in front of other people. So we're speaking about lighting the fire, overcoming nerves, feeling good about yourself. What stops you? And then the other part of lighting a fire, if you're going to come across with confidence and competence and charisma, is to show genuine interest. So for a couple of seconds, and we're going to keep this very short, I want you to share with the person next to you what your biggest challenge in life is right now. Now, you can be as personal or as professional. It can be anything from the traffic, dealing with an elderly parent. What is your biggest challenge? Something personal, something at work. What if I were to say to you, what is the one thing that's causing you the most stress at the moment? Now, if you don't have anything, I want to know what you're taking. Turn to the person next to you very quickly. What's causing you the most stress? And then switch. Okay, I am so sorry to cut you short there. To be continued over lunch. I wanted to make the point of how quick that was. Who is sitting next to somebody they had not met before today? Do you know that it doesn't take very long to go from what I call a cardboard cutout to a real person? Now, I'm not saying you go up to a complete stranger and go, hello, what's causing you the most pain? Ask someone what's going on in their lives. And then if they tell you, you know, I'm dealing with a really difficult situation, my mother's elderly. Don't say to them, you think that's bad. My mother and my father are elderly. Don't one up. Just listen to people and give them their moment. Show genuine interest. The other part of lighting the fire is relax. Do you handle difficult situations? If I click over something, it is because we have already discussed it. Do you handle difficult situations like this?
My God, okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure?
So, I know some of you see people handle difficult situations like that, but do you? So going forward from now and forevermore, I'm going to ask you to always employ the following 3 steps. When you find yourself feeling stressed, stop.
My God!
Stop. What is going on with me here? Challenge. What am I telling myself? So if somebody reacts in a certain way or sends you a really nasty email, what am I perceiving here? How true is the message that I'm telling myself? What's really going on? Challenge yourself and then choose, how am I going to react to this? Stop, challenge, and choose. And if you start to do that and share that with the people around you, we always have a choice how we react. We know that we don't have control over people, we only have control over ourselves. So stop, challenge, and choose. The E of lighting the fire is to engage with energy, excitement, and enthusiasm. And I am not saying walk around like you're on crack. I'm saying, do you look joyful about yourself or your work? And you know, somebody who exemplifies energy and excitement and enthusiasm for me is this. Is this.
She's irreverent, she's indomitable, and ready to laugh at everyone and everything, including herself. She was very self-deprecating.
That's one of the reasons she was loved in the U.S., but she was loved widely around the world as well. So let's bring in editorial producer Nadia. And Nadia, she did have some very famous fans around the world.
And you said irreverent. She was so irreverent that you might find it surprising that one of her greatest fans and friends was Prince Charles. Prince Charles and Camilla. She was actually at their 2005 wedding. And she performed at an event, a charity event, in honor of his 60th birthday. So I want to read you what Prince Charles said about his friend, Joan Rivers. She was an extraordinary woman with an original and indefatigable spirit, an unstoppable sense of humor, and an enormous zest for life. She will be hugely missed and utterly irreplaceable. I just had these visions of Charles, you know, so formal and proper, and there's Joan Rivers. It just seemed, didn't it?
It does not seem possible, but maybe that is why.
And they had more than just an acquaintance. This was a deep friendship. And then London Transport is my all-time favorite because they pay tribute to Joan Rivers, but also take a slight dig at her. They say, as a tribute to the late Joan Rivers, part of the station will be gradually replaced over the next
You know what? She would probably laugh at that.
Oh, she would.
She would think that
As
is
you
terrible.
said, she was good at making fun of others, but she had great pleasure in making fun of herself.
Yeah.
Do you remember that joke where she said, I have had so much plastic surgery that when I die, they could donate my body to Tupperware.
And you have to think, I mean, she did not, when we were talking about the instructions, the wishes that she wanted for her funeral, this was not something she wanted to be sedate.
No, she did not want to be sedate. And before we get to her wishes, can I tell you what Benjamin Netanyahu said?
Yes.
Now, I am not saying that Joan Rivers is my all-time role model, please. What I am saying is she had an ability to laugh at herself. I'm going to ask you all to stand up. Oscar Wilde said so wonderfully that you may as well like yourself because everyone else was already taken. And then Maya Angelou said, people don't always remember exactly what you say, but they do remember the way you make them. Take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, her. Thank you all so much. Thank you.